Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Sebastian Fundora fights this Saturday at Mandalay Bay against Chordell Booker. And Chordell Booker, chance of a lifetime, battling Sebastian Fundora for his WBC and WBO titles. But let me tell you something. I seem to be the only one who's talking about this. And if others are talking about it, you know what? Good for them. And maybe I don't know what they're talking about because I'm not watching their channels. But I just think Sebastian Fundora, if he wants to hold on to that WBO and WBC title, he's got to start using his jab. He's got to start using it. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't throw it, but he definitely doesn't throw it enough, and he doesn't rely on it the way you would think a fighter with an 80-plus inch reach at 6'5", fighting at super welterweight at 154 pounds. He has a 5 to 10 inch reach advantage on every one of his opponents. That's absurd. However, he doesn't choose to fight tall and long. He chooses to turn into a super welterweight Isak Pitbull Cruz. Anyway, the jab is the most important punch in boxing. And that's why when you listen to Malignaggi talk, you listen to Zab Judah talk, you listen to De La Hoya talk, you listen to Mayweather talk, you listen to Lennox Lewis talk, even AJ, even when you listen to some of these promoters, and I hate to throw his name out there, you listen to Eddie Hearn. You know, they all talk about what a jab can do for a fighter, especially Emmanuel Stewart. That guy, man, was really big, one, on getting knockouts, but setting things up with the jab. Now, for those of you who say, you know what, man, a jab is just a punch that's just to set up other shots. You know, you that's not the punch that wins a fight. Now, when I hear people say that, you know what I gotta say. I gotta say, hold your horses. Let's not take it to the stupid. Let me tell you something. You look at Muhammad Ali, you look at De La Hoya, Corte, and the other fighters, Larry Holmes. They were able to win fights on the jab alone. And if you want to be a good boxer, you need to have a good jab. And Sebastian Fundora, fortunately for him, it does sound like over the last year, they've worked on not only getting leverage on their shots, putting together more solid power punches, more effective punches, but also working his jab and getting him to utilize that natural advantage he has with the reach and height. But one thing we know, no matter how much they worked on him being tall using the jab, a fighter is what they are. And Fundora, at heart, is a fighter. But the thing about him is, with this jab, he's got to be fast, he's got to be quick, and he can't just let it languish out there. That's where he can get countered. He's got to really use it to set up his shots. And you notice a lot of guys who have a really good jab, they seem to be more calm, be more relaxed in the ring. Because even if someone lands a good shot, they can reset. And then they can get that little spark in their eyes where they get back to the jab and they can resume control of the fight. So most of the round, they'll have control of the fight. They may lose a little control for a couple seconds, but once they get back, regain their composure, and get back on their stick, which is what Fundora needs to do, the fight starts to become relatively easily. Now, for Fundora, a guy with the height and the legs, right, he can cover a lot of ground. Now, his jab can enhance everything else that he brings into the ring. Can make him stronger with coming forward. He covers a lot of ground with a step, but stepping and also coming behind that jab, that's going to help him to be a much stronger fighter and to help him get even more power, which is what he's been working on behind that right hand that he likes to throw. And also with the proper timing, footwork, and then him, with what he does at times, he'll use effective angles. But that being said, it all sounds good. But if he's going to choose to stand in close and allow himself to get off combinations, which in turn is going to allow his opponent to get off combinations, well, then he's going to be up shit creek without a paddle. Because with those long arms, although he can get some leverage on his shots, his opponents can get there quicker. Okay? So the thing is for him to sit back, be tall and long, use that jab So when his opponents start to get desperate and try to throw shots or throw combinations, he can use that jab to break up all that combination shit that they're trying to deliver to him. You see what I'm saying? That's one thing about the jab. The jab can disrupt everything, man. Set you up to throw power shots, set you up to change directions. It can set you up and help you get out of trouble. And the one thing people don't talk about, which I think is a very big concern for Sebastian Fundora, is defensively what a jab can do for him. It can help him create space, which is what a guy who at 6'5" needs to be maintaining. It can keep your opponents at bay, keep them honest, have them putting some respect on your name, and then also it can distract them, especially when you're coming off the ropes. Now you may say, well, Sebastian Fundora, yeah, he ends up on the ropes. Again, remember, he doesn't fight tall all the time. He will fight like an Isak Pitbull Cruz, but he's got to use his jab. If not, I'll be honest with you, he's a guy. I think Fundora can become undisputed at 154. I'll say that. I think he can easily become undisputed at 154. You look at Nikolai Valuev. That man wasn't the most talented fighter, but he was huge, had reach, and as a result, he was able to pick up a title. And he was able to hold the title for a while, and he did pretty good at heavyweight. But Fundora has skill. Valuev didn't. He was just big. But it was his reach advantage. It was his size. It was the power. If Valuev figured out how to, try to use his jab, and he had the 20% solution because he just wasn't really, cut out to be a boxer. The guy was a giant. Then Fundora can come out here and figure it out. And he can learn. It can start with just throwing the regular jab more often. You know what I'm saying? Standard jab. Just throw it out from the basic position. Just shoot that shit out there. Step forward with your lead foot as you extend your arm towards your opponent, man. As you recover your lead arm, the rear foot moves forward and returns you to your basic stance. Simple. You don't have to do nothing complicated. This ain't rocket science. Just come out there with your basic jab. Change up the speed, change up your timing, how you throw it, and the angles. And everything opens up. And then he could come out here, man, and in my opinion, do like you see, who was it who just liked to, what Berdabiev was doing when he fought Bivol in their first fight. He was more just tapping with the jab. You know what I'm saying? He was just throwing more of a light punch that was just to make the opponent, put up his defense. You know what I mean? Which gives you time to land a harder shot. You see that happen a lot of time in boxing. The guy's just throwing a jab out. It's not really effective as far as power, but it's keeping somebody busy. It's keeping them preoccupied. It's keeping their mind, focused. It's keeping their mind busy on what you're doing, and they never see the power shot, which is what you're trying to ultimately land on them. So I think for Fundora, go with the basic jab, but then mix it up with some of those little, what I call like tappers. I'm just kind of throw it out there, tap, 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 and then boom, try to shoot that big right hand, okay? And then the space maker, if you're going to come out there and you're going to just tap, tap and shoot out a basic jab, but then also use that long arm as a space maker. You know who does that? I see do that pretty regularly is Ryan Garcia. He'll come out there and keep that arm out and almost keep it on your forehead and then boom, shoot the right hand or hook off of his jab. So when you put it out there like that and to create that space, I'm trying to think who, Bivol will do that too. Who else does it where they just kind of box and they keep that arm out? There was someone, he's not a boxer, but John Jones will do that shit too. He'll keep his arm straight out. That's someone who just comes right to mind, who just keeps that arm out. There's someone else who would do that and keep their arm out to measure you and then get the big shot off. Was it Anthony Joshua I saw doing that? But nonetheless, that's something that Fundora needs to look at, man. Because I'm going to tell you what, man, when you leave your arm almost fully extended, so your jab is quicker but weaker, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can lack the distance and it can lack the power you generate, but it does something to help you create space. And when you get able to create space, it makes it hard for the opponents to land on you. Then you have the guys who just come in there and win a fight off the jab alone. You look at Inoue. When Inoue hits you with a jab, that shit is like a right hand. You know what I'm saying? Inoue's jab is a problem. I'm trying to think who else has that kind of jab. Winky Wright had that kind of jab. Ike Corte for sure, the bazooka jab. When he shot that shit out, that shit was like a right hand. And there's someone else who throws a very powerful jab. Oh, Daniel Dubois. Let me tell you something. That shit can be more. That jab, when you throw a powerful jab, that shit can be as powerful as a straight right hand or straight left. If you can generate the power that I know Fundora can, shooting that power jab, you know what I'm saying? But that power's got to come from your legs, come from your body rotation, and just the overall angle of yourself and the opponent. So if Fundora works on these things, I'm just telling you, I think he's going to be an issue. Then once you got all that locked in, then you start coming with the double jab, jabbing to the body, stab jab like Mayweather. Then you got the counter jab, you know what I'm saying? And that counter jab, which you do see some fighters doing it, but it's a little bit more challenging because the move is done with precise time, and it works best when you're a fighter who's, swift and really relaxed. Lamont Roach comes to mind when I think of somebody with the counter jab and what he was able to do against a guy like, what's his name, Gervonta Davis. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Fundora must start using his jab, and there's just so many different things. I mean, hooking off the jab, changing his distance with the jab, parrying shots to come now and throw a big right hand, a big straight left, based on you parrying shots with your jab, and just making sure that you don't come out there flinching every time somebody's throwing something at you. You can use that jab, just kind of, to throw feints and then get the jab out there. These are all things that just the jab alone can do. You know what I'm saying? Throw some light ones, throw some hard ones. You know what I mean? Go up and down. These are things you see fighters do all the time in the ring. And half the time you're watching it, you just see a fight, but you don't really understand that these guys are using that jab in 15, 16 different ways. And I think one of the most important things to do is, when you're throwing a combination, sometimes, you like to end your combination with the big right hand or big left hand, but, it's could be a little easier when you end with the jab. Caleb Plant comes to mind when I think of somebody. He may throw a 2-1. Yeah, he may throw a 2-1-2, then end with the one, end with the jab. You know what I mean? Or he may throw a 2-1. Some people call it a swivel jab. He'll throw the left because he's left-handed, but he'll throw the right hand and come back with the left. So it's real quick, 2-1, and it just throws people off because he's ending the combination with a jab, which some fighters aren't expecting. Anyway, y'all keep cool. In my opinion, Fundora can go on to become undisputed. We're going to see how he looks this weekend. But if he fights like Pitbull Cruz, he's going to have a problem. And I'm sure he knows because he's been fighting since he's been a kid. He comes from a fighting family. The jab is the best weapon in boxing. And like Larry Holmes used to say, I got the best jab in the business. And Larry Holmes' jab earned him millions and millions of dollars. It can hurt your opponent. It can defend you from the backhand right, backhand left. It creates space for you, push your opponent away. It can do all kinds of things, man. And depending on how you land that shot, who was fighting this weekend? They got hit with a jab and they started bleeding. Because the jab can cut you. It was somebody we saw fighting this weekend. They got hit with a jab and they started bleeding. And I was like, damn, they got cut. It was someone this past weekend. I can't remember. But it was someone who got hit with a jab and they just cut him right open. I can't remember who that was, but the bottom line is a jab, especially when you turn that jab over, you can sit there and turn it and you can tear somebody's skin right apart, man. Okay? So the jab, in my opinion, is a very, very effective shot, the most important weapon in boxing. And with a guy like Fundora, with his stature, with his reach, with his boxing experience, at this point in his career, he should know it's time for me. I proved to everybody that I'm a dog, but it's time for me to come out here and make the fights easy, create separation between myself and these opponents, and just win. Terrence Crawford is one who will tell you, just win. Boxing is about hitting and not getting hit. Shakur Stevenson is all about hitting and not getting hit. And I think Fundora needs to adopt that mentality based on where he's at in his career and going forward. And I think Fundora could go on and become undisputed at 154. Shock everybody. Who would have thought Fundora would have bubbled up to 154 or bubbled up in the 154 division and go on to become undisputed? But he's got to rely on his jab and tuck his chin, because if not, somebody gonna tranquilize him. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. Yo, I'm in the breeze.